Cuba, a place now where millions of inhabitants face rationed food and limited medical supplies. There's also poor internet access and daily power cuts.
Yet, undeterred by the challenges of daily life or connection, these two games developers have overcome outages to achieve an international publishing deal.
All my life I want to make video games. All my illusion, expectation, have you say for so many years, was to be the first to put Cuba, simple, in the map of video games in the world. Then I met David and we start to work together.
And we right away started working on what would become Saviorless 7 years later. Saviorless is a classic 2D platformer. It starts like a narrative game, like just asking the player to see the world, to enjoy everything, but it suddenly turns into a very action, fast, paced, frenetic game. Saviorless was an 8-year project, but the first 4 years were just making a demo just to try and convince an international publisher of signing with us. That was actually the hardest part of the project. If you are an international publisher and you see a pitch from a completely new game studio of two guys, and on top of that they are in Cuba, you are asking a huge trust.
Out of the blue, one day, the villagers contact us directly. Apparently they see something about our game in internet, and well, they sign us.
And that was a key point in the project, the moment where Dear Villagers signed with us, and then we spent like 3 years straight on developing the game. The typical cycle of development of Saviorless is very uncommon in terms of what you expect the development of a video game of this scale should be. Not just because the internet is slow, but because it's very inconsistent. It's not stable enough to sustain the uploading of the files that you usually find on a game, that are huge files. We lost a whole week of work just because these tools are not built thinking that at any time there will be a blackout. The generator. Today, the schedule says that from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. we won't have light, so we are 2 hours away from the blackout. We just store the generator for important moments because there's also not enough fuel.
Even if you have to deal with all this stuff and all this problem, it's very difficult. I will not like anyone about it, but still, if you love video games, I definitely think you should try it.
When you look back, you see a lot of obstacles, but you realize that we were able to go over these obstacles, but we didn't remove them.
The situation in Cuba right now is far difficult than when we start, but I feel pretty confident. I feel that even if our first game was not perfect, you will see a second game from me.
Got a question for you. You're in space on an asteroid. It's a complete mess out there. What's the best way to get around? Well, here's an idea that I think's got legs.
Space hopper.
No, not that kind of space hopper.
Boing.
Actually, to be honest, yeah, that kind of space hopper.
Boing.
10 students from ETH University in Zurich designed this prototype for extremely low gravity environments, maybe to look for different minerals that are worth mining from asteroids. And it gets from place to place by pronking about like some three-legged space gazelle.
I've seen a few bouncing space robots in my time. You might think it's quite a chaotic way to get about, and certainly if you're on wheels or tracks, that does seem more controllable. But when you think about it, if you're on a really uneven surface, leaping over small boulders, big stones, might be quite sensible. The thing that worries me is what happens if it jumps and then flips itself over or land on its side or something. But what it does to keep itself stable when it's off the ground is think like a cat.
See, as a feline falls, it frantically flails its fur, well actually its legs, and Spacehopper keeps itself upright during flight by using its limbs in the same way.
Basically, as if you're standing on a small rope, right? And if you're about to fall, you're going to swing your arms to stay upright. That's exactly what it does.
So if you put a cat on the moon and dropped it, it would still be able to right itself, even though there's no air to grip against.
We could try, but I guess it should work.
Yeah, okay, let's not try it. Well, not with the cat. How on earth did you work out what it needs to do to get itself back in the right orientation, regardless of which way up it is?
That's a great question, because for a human, that's really hard to design. So what we used is reinforcement learning, a type of AI basically. So the robot learns that in simulation and figures out what actually works, which motions work to stay upright.
So you, in theory, trained, what, hundreds or thousands of virtual robots, and one of them eventually came out as getting it right, is that right?
Exactly. Nowadays you can simulate like years of experience in just a few minutes on a PC, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Simulating low gravity is hard here on Earth, so to test their control software, the team took Spacehopper on a very special day trip.
You took this on a parabolic flight. You took it on the Vomit Comet.
Exactly.
How was that for you personally? I've never done it. I want to know what it's like.
It's amazing. I can highly recommend it.
Right, okay.
Luckily for me, it wasn't the Vomit Comet. I was fine. And then experiencing that weightlessness is just an amazing feeling.
Did you have any time to pay attention to the robot, or were you just doing somersaults all the time?
No, I actually had a lot of time on the robot. Just for one small part, I could go and do some somersaults, but otherwise we were just operating the system.
And the system performed very well indeed. And in fact, now the team has parked the asteroid investigation plan and answered a call slightly closer to home. It's been selected by the European Space Agency ESA as a contender to go to the moon. The team suggested kitting out the robot with ground-penetrating radar to probe below the lunar surface and look for lava tubes, subsurface tunnels like the one recently discovered on a rocky plain called Mare Tranquillitatis, and which might one day be used as lunar bases to shelter humans from solar radiation up above. And lo, Spacehopper has become Lunar Leaper.
Our goal would be to land on the surface, outside of where we think that lava tube is, and then approach what is basically a big hole in the ground. It's called a lunar pit. Lunar pits are these steep-walled holes that are collapse features. So this lava tube has collapsed in the center or so. So we would want to approach this hole and look at this entry in a lot of detail. Map it in as much detail as we can, and basically also prepare for follow-up missions that might be much bigger, much more expensive, and potentially lead to some longer-term stations below the surface.
What concerns me is this thing bounces around, and you want to get as close to the entrance to a great big hole as you can. I want to do that really carefully. And what I'm thinking is this thing is going to bound towards it. If you get it wrong, it's just going to disappear over the edge.
I think we can direct it carefully towards the edge. And obviously, in the beginning of the mission, you would be a little bit more conservative, you'd be more careful because you don't want to die right away. Yeah. Towards the end of the mission, if you know that you won't survive the night, you might be a little more risky, a little more adventurous, and that's okay.
I'm getting Thelma and Louise vibes here. So that, did they make the jump? Did they make the jump?
Right.
Yeah, that bit about surviving the night. See, like most other moonbots, Lunar Leaper would be solar powered and have just 14 Earth days of sunlight to do its work before the sun went down, temperatures dropped below minus 130 Celsius, and the system died in the cold. It's for these reasons that many teams choose to end space missions by going out in style.
Possibly towards the end of the mission, one could think of jumping into that hole. No! Whoa! However, no.
All I'm thinking about now is the death of Lunar Leaper. I've heard that it won't make it through the lunar night. Now I've heard that you could possibly jump it into a pit. It's just over there.
It's just over there.
Oh, listen, it's fine. Fine.
And on that note, we'll leave you for this week. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.